All right, Mr. Alberta. I know you've been dying to, you and I you were on a podcast this week. I was your arm candy, and then you were speaking at a different event. And I tell you, this Mr. Alberta thing is really starting to catch on, Patrick, because other people are starting to call you Mr. Alberta because they see your lean, your positive lean towards Alberta. So I'm opening the conversation by talking. The next topic is recession. So I'm opening the conversation, Mr. Alberta, and I'll just leave you the floor, and then I'll see what I can do with it.
Okay, well, I'm Mr. Alberta only because we look at the economic fundamentals, and as much as I am a fan of Alberta, I was born and raised in Alberta. The point is I'm not attached to Alberta when it comes to what's happening economically. As somebody who's looking at the economic shifts that are happening, and as a real estate investor, I just want to put our money to work, or my money to work, and I want to put it into an economy with a future. So, as you recall, back pre-COVID, we were talking about Alberta and seeing where it was going. And we were actually saying to our community, as well as our investors, pay attention to what's happening in Alberta, particularly Calgary at that point. And then when COVID hit, we saw that churn start to pick up, and we knew that Alberta was going to be very strong. We said Calgary was going to be one of those areas that really hit it out of the park. Well, why was that? Because economically, we saw the shift in oil and gas, number one. Number two, we saw the leadership shift in terms of what they were doing with the province and diversification of what they were bringing into the province. But here's a fundamental thing. Housing was very inexpensive at a time when everywhere else, it seemed, in the country was getting really expensive. The cost of living, lower cost of living in Canada, no HST, no PST. And then the cost of business. So what was happening is we saw businesses even going into the province. And well, what does that mean? It means, well, guess what? They're going there because they can do business. Number two, that it's the cost of business is lower, which meant that they were attracting jobs. So this is all to say that in an overview, we see what's happening in Alberta. Provincially, they're very strong economically. We're seeing huge immigration into that province, and interprovincial migration as well. So we've been pounding this drum, if you will, for 3 years, and now all of a sudden it's coming into people's awareness. Now, this is all to say that the economic fundamentals that we watch, that we share with the community, this is just kind of, we told you so, because it wasn't that we have a crystal ball. It's just that when you look at these economic fundamentals, the drivers and the influencers, you can start to see how things are going to unfold. People who got in 2 and 3 years ago are pretty happy. Now, of course, many are getting into that market, that Alberta market, still very strong, still has a good future in terms of the real estate. We'll be paying attention.
Now, by the way, you told me earlier this week you're no good at monologues, but let me tell you, you just got to talk about Alberta, and you're very good at monologues. I mean, that was a hell of a monologue right there. I couldn't even get a breath in there. So thank you for that rant, Mr. Alberta. That has nothing to do with the conversation we're having, because I asked you about a recession, and then you went into your Mr. Alberta monologue. Now, let me ask you the next question. Before we go on to the recession, we got to ask the next question. Are you on the province's payroll? Just checking. Just full disclosure. No?
Either tell me the truth or shut up.
No, and all I want to do is share with our listeners, our community, that Alberta is a very strong economic.
Listen. I'm not saying, dude, you're right. I listened to you. I moved some of my portfolio to Alberta, and I've doubled my money in the last 18 months. So I tell everyone you're right. Hey, but you're still Mr. Alberta.
Yeah. Okay. All I want how are you rewarding me for that information, by the way?
Just my friendship is reward enough.
Okay. So the point is this, back to the conversation about recession, no recession.
Thank you.
Okay, so JG, one of the things that we didn't get into in enough detail, I don't think today, but we can now look at all these points that we covered. And one of the risks that are happening that we have to pay attention to, that the Bank of Canada is going to pay attention to, and that is the employment numbers. Right now, we've got record low unemployment, which I've said many times is not healthy. But if we start to see unemployment tick up, and my magic number is 6%, and that's just based on a lot of years of experience, and I know that 6% is still a healthy number. But we start ticking up over that number, and we're going to start to see some real fears around a bigger recession happening. Now, the thing about employment is it doesn't seem to tick up slowly. All of a sudden it starts and then goes boom, and you start to see a real spike in unemployment. The thing that we have to consider is when we talk about commercial real estate, for example, and what happens as the buildings aren't filling up, what does that mean to the businesses that are needing those people to come into them? Well, they start to slow down. People not spending money, those things start to slow down. So when we look at the unemployment numbers into the future, if we start to see them go up, the Bank of Canada will actually back off on that rate increase. They will not do another real rate increase. Having said that, if we don't see that unemployment number start to tick up, then we'll probably see another quarter point, is what I think TIF is going to have to do to try and keep things under control. Point is this: rates go up, people spend less money. I expect unemployment to start to tick up. That whole monologue, what you call a rant, is really to say this, is that Alberta is positioned very well into the future. And I don't see a recession. I think Alberta will be the economic engine for Canada in a big way over the next year or two for sure. And as much as we're seeing oil prices come down, I'm sorry, we can't step over the fact that we got a geopolitical, a macro of what's going on, Ukraine, Russia. It feels like that's a repeat all the time. But guess what? Things are actually escalating over there. Not good news, but I'm very, very confident that we're going to see oil prices go up. I just can't see how it is. When you do the math, you got China coming back online, so their demand for oil is going to be much higher. There's lots of things that are happening in behind the scenes that only speaks for the price of oil and natural gas increasing into the future. Right now, things are down. Let's take advantage of it. But when we look into the future, I don't think it's going to stay there.
Now, you and I both have a plane to catch, so we can't afford any more Alberta monologues, by the way. But I still don't have an answer to the recession, because it was like, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, Patrick, I remember these exact words coming out of your mouth, which first come out of your mind and then come out of your mouth, which is, I don't see a way we're not going to go into recession, is what you said 6 months ago. So where are you at? Now, things change. And listen, I'm not saying that things don't change. Things have changed. So given the stance today and given the data we have in front of us today, where are you at with that?
Well, so right now I'm on the page where I'm concerned about Ontario. I think that they could, in fact, get into negative GDP growth by kind of mid to third quarter of this year. It could go there based on the data that I'm seeing. And so in terms of, I always said, I don't see the data going into a recession, but now as the more data comes in, I'm going, when we look at it from a provincial perspective, I see Ontario at risk. I see the Western provinces not so much.
Beautiful. Recession covered. We're going to dig into that on the next episode a little bit more. Yeah. Not bad. Good shot again.
Oh, but I want to point out one thing about that recession in Ontario.
Oh, here we go. Another friggin' Alberta monologue.
No, not at all. I just want to share with, listeners is that, one of the things that we look at when you go into, when you have Ontario with the population it has a big impact on the rest of the country, and it has a big impact economically. So as much as Alberta is, over 4 million people, and it's driving a lot of revenue, a lot of tax revenue into the general coffers, Ontario being upside down is not a good thing given the population.
So you're saying it's actually Ontario driving Alberta?
No, Ontario's going to support Ontario. Alberta will support Ontario, as they often do.
If you're interested in learning about investing in real estate the right way, look at our Real Estate Investing in Canada program, 15 steps to successfully investing in real estate. Thousands of real estate investors have learned the right way to invest in real estate following those 15 steps. You're absolutely going to love that program. Take a look, click on the link in the description below.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe. And if you've enjoyed this, please share it with someone that you know, because it's going to be incredibly valuable to them. Also, we'd love to hear from you, so please comment below. If you want to see more stuff like this, click here. If you want to see the entire show, click there.